my teachers passed out a form to all of us that was to go in our permanent record. So immediately, the anxiety went up. And on this piece of paper, we were supposed to write our top 2 career choices at the wise age of 11 or 12. And I believe we may have a few folks in the room close to that age. I don't know if you know what you wanted to do at that age, but I was so sure at 12. I knew exactly what I was going to do. 12-year-old Hilary loved to write stories and poems and filled her free time with not only reading books, but trying to write them. And sometimes I'd read a book and think, that ending is no good. I'm going to fix it and rewrite it myself. So when that piece of paper landed on my desk at school, with great confidence, I wrote writer on the first line. I was young and free and confident and did not know the reality of rejection letters and trying to pay the bills while you write manuscripts. So I had no doubt at all that's what I would do and that's what I would be. But something else had to go on that second line, or my teacher would not take the paper back. So I had to think of some other second career choice. And at the time, I thought it was such a waste of my time because, of course, I would be a writer, no problem. The beauty of being young. So I stared at that second line for a while and thought, well, of course, I am going to be a writer, no doubt about it, but I was also a teacher's pet, so I did what I was told and thought of a second option. And you might wonder, now that you've had a few months to get to know me, what did she put down as her second choice for career at the tender age of 12? Maybe teacher, which I eventually became. Maybe pastor, which I eventually became. Nope, none of those. With great confidence, thinking it was a fine second choice that I would never need, I wrote ornithologist. And if you're not up on your Latin and Greek root words, obviously, ologist, the ending means a student of, and ornithos means bird. Yes, birds. So 12-year-old Hilary thought if she didn't find success as a novelist right away, that she could spend her time studying birds and watching birds, and it'd be fine. Great way to pay the bills. 12 years old. So none of this really should surprise you because I was an imaginative, spiritual child. My head was always in the clouds, my eyes always on the skies. Reality was really an inconvenient thing that I had to face once in a while. And birds I found very beautiful. Not just because of their beauty and the different colors, different shapes, but of course because of their most enviable ability, which was to fly. And as I was a devout little 12-year-old girl in my Southern Baptist church, I'd carry my Bible around in a case. It was zipped up tightly with all my little notes and the little stickers so that I would know where all the books were. And on this case, it was green, and on it was a beautiful embroidered image of an eagle. And also in beautiful cursive embroidery were words you will recognize from the readings we just heard. Even youth grow tired and weary, even young stumble and fall, but those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. This section of Isaiah is written for the Israelites while they were still in exile in Babylon. And they had been for generations. Years and years, these people had been displaced in a foreign land. But this passage in Isaiah, the prophet is telling them the exile is going to be over soon. Hope is coming. And at the time of hearing this, God's people may likely have found it difficult to believe, because they were still very much in the reality of exile, living in a land where they had been forced into, and facing a choice to either assimilate, give up their culture, or be persecuted. I have to imagine they heard Isaiah's words and thought, yeah, sure, we will believe it when we see it. And Isaiah, of course, would have known very well what they were facing. He knew how God's people had been suffering. This chapter of Isaiah is the same one that begins with, "Comfort, O comfort my people," that we often hear at Christmas and Advent. "Speak tenderly to Jerusalem and cry to her that she has served her term, that her penalty is paid." Isaiah wants desperately to give God's people hope that the end of the exile is coming and that their suffering will end. And to convince them that, yes, this is really happening, you can trust that the words that I'm telling you will come true, Isaiah relies on beautiful poetic descriptions of God's power over nature. Have you not known? Have you not heard? Has it not been told to you from the beginning? It is God who sits above the circle of the earth, and its inhabitants are like grasshoppers. It is God who stretches out the heavens like a curtain and spreads them like a tent to live in. God who brings princes to naught and makes the rulers of earth as nothing. Isaiah recognizes that there were times when the Israelites would have felt abandoned and forgotten by God because of this long period of exile. Generations and generations went on without relief, without escape, oppression, suffering. And of course, despair came to God's people at times, and they felt, maybe God has forgotten us. And Isaiah wants to remind them, have you not known? Have you not heard? The Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of the ends of the earth. He does not grow faint or weary. He gives power to the weak and strengthens the powerless. In other words, Isaiah is saying to them, God is present all around you. God created the world to the ends of the earth. So of course, God is present with you. God will strengthen you now when you find it hard to believe that the exile is ending. God will empower you now, though you feel powerless to change the situation you are in, stuck in Babylon. And despite the many thousands of years and vast cultural differences that separate us from the ancient people exiled in Babylon, Isaiah's words could just as easily be reminders to us as we wrestle with the despair and suffering in our own world. Last week, when Coffee Oasis was here, they told us that there are around 40,000 homeless students in the state of Washington, homeless youth. And that number doesn't include the ones that have already dropped out of public school. So the number is likely much higher. It is very easy when faced with a statistic like that to feel despair, feel powerless. And that's just us, feeling like we can't affect the outcome. What if you were one of those kids experiencing it? How easy it would be to feel forgotten. When we feel exhausted and overwhelmed by the suffering in the world, or even in our own lives, I think we need the same reminder that Isaiah gave God's people. Haven't you known? Haven't you heard? Has it not been taught to you since the beginning? The Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of the ends of the earth. Does not grow faint or weary. His understanding is unsearchable. Gives power to the faint and strength to the powerless. In our own lives, moments of despair come, but God gives us the strength to face another day. God never grows weary of caring for creation or humanity, and asks us to participate in that care. God will empower us when we feel powerless. We, as a church, cannot solve hunger in Kitsap County by ourselves, but we can help. As you saw by the big pile of food out front, that we've been gathering the last couple weeks. And just because we can't feed everybody doesn't mean we shouldn't feed somebody. Coffee Oasis can't by themselves house every homeless teenager in the state of Washington, but they can house some, and they can give these kids a safe place to be a kid for a few hours. Just because they can't do everything doesn't mean they shouldn't do something. In March of 2020, when my team of chaplains was faced with the difficult reality that we had tons of suffering people in these hospitals, but we were not allowed to go into any of the rooms. We would walk the halls and talk to the staff and see in these rooms patients by themselves, sometimes on a ventilator, all with COVID, and their families couldn't be with them, and they were alone. That was probably the hardest part for me. And I remember going to my spiritual director. We had a Zoom meeting, of course, Zoom. And I was so upset, and I cried to her and said, I can't stand that they won't let me go in these rooms. This is my whole job, was to be with the people when they're suffering. And none of these patients have their families with them. I can't stand that they're alone. And the only thing I can do is call their families. Well, Zoom meeting, so my spiritual director leaned in really close to her webcam and looked at the camera so she could simulate eye contact as best she could. And she said, Hilary, 2 things. First of all, calling those families is not nothing. It matters. And second of all, it's just really intent. She's like, I want you to listen to me when I say this. Not one, not a single one of those patients is alone. And you know that. You know God is present in all of those hospital rooms, holding each one of those patients' hands. And that really helped me. And so as I walked those hallways and would feel the powerlessness, I started to picture Jesus sitting at the side of all the beds, holding on to their hands, just like he did with Peter's mother-in-law, lifting them up. It helped. My spiritual director was my Isaiah. Hilary, don't you remember? Haven't you been taught from the beginning? God is the creator of the world, present to the ends of the earth. So of course, God is present in all those hospital rooms. Does it mean that I stopped trying to be with as many people as I could or call as many families as I could? Of course not. I kept doing what I could because every good thing is worth doing. But I felt lighter after her words. I didn't mount up on wings like eagles, per se, but I did feel like I could get out of bed and go do it again. Over and over. Isaiah's reminder is as true today as it was then. Don't you remember? Have you not heard? God is the everlasting God. There's a famous quote from the Talmud, probably a mishmash of several quotes actually, that went viral recently. It says this: the Talmud states, do not be daunted by the enormity of the world's grief. Do justly now. Love mercy now. Walk with God now. You are not obligated to complete the work, but neither are you free to abandon it. So just because you can't do everything doesn't mean you can't do something, and something is always worth doing. And when you grow tired, remember that none of us are in it alone. Have you not heard? Has it not been told to you since the beginning? God is the everlasting God, creator to the ends of the earth. Amen.